Hi, people! Welcome to another edition of My Life Continues Every Day podcast. I am excited. I'm not supposed to be so excited because something happened to me this week. Not necessarily okay, fine, it was personal, but it's fine. So I'm excited because of the guest that I have. And when you hear her talk, oh God, I already revealed the gender. It's fine, Sha. I just wanted you all to sit back, relax, because today's episode is going to be one in a million. I mean, we've been listening to really great episodes, but this is just one of those great ones. So yeah, welcome to My Life Continues Every Day. I am Amanda Elo, and I'll reveal my guest just after the break. So hold on, guys. My life.
My life will continue every day.
My life continues every day.
Well, my life continues every day.
We move.
My life continues every day with Amanda Elo.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Cha from Capital FM in Nairobi, Kenya, and you're listening to My Life Continues Everyday podcast with Amanda Elo.
So it feels really good to be here today because 2 days ago I didn't think I was going to be here. Why? Because something really happened to me. When you're thinking that everything in your life is going well, I think I've said this over time, this particular season, right? This season 3, I've been talking about thinking you have something, but you're losing it. And this is the third time that particular thing. Like I said, I'm going to reveal this thing later by God's grace, but it has to be a success before I'm able to reveal it. But for now, blessings have come. I am blessed. I accept the blessings, and I want you to know my life is not miserable at all. I'm fine. Work is fine. Work is fine. More clients. God is good. Good health. Great. However, there are just some things. My friend was telling me the other day, it seems like you have near success syndrome issues. And I remember saying this thing one time, and somebody said, God forbid you don't have it, Amanda. You don't have near success syndrome. But sometimes I look at my life and things are happening, and I'm saying, how is it that I'm just one step away from 10? Like I'm about to climb 10. I move from 0 to 9, 9.5. Once I'm about to climb to 10, the thing just goes round and about, and then I'm back to 5 again or 1 again, and then I come up. Some days I come up, and to be fair, I push past 10 and I do really great things. But some other times, especially with the things that I really, really want, I push and I push and I push and I get to that 10 again and I fall off, and it's like Sisyphus. You should go read about Sisyphus. The legend of Sisyphus, I think, is a Greek mythology or something, or a legend or whatever. Just go read about it. Rolling stone, you roll, you get to the top, you fall back again, and it's really scary. But I'm a child of God, and I do not believe that I'm Sisyphus. However, I know that his plans for me are of good and not of evil. Sometimes I'm not going to lie, I doubt. I doubt. And I'm telling you all because I'm very vulnerable on this space. I try as much as possible to show off what is important, right? I doubt sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, are you sure you've not made a mistake? You've not walked out of the track God wants you to move on. And now you are, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Well, I'm not totally miserable, but the truth is I'm not where I want to be. I think a lot of us are not where we want to be, but I'm not where I want to be. And it's scary, but there are other beautiful things. Yes, the silver lining is there are things that I never knew I could achieve that I'm achieving right now. I want to believe that is what God wants me to achieve at this point. Now, let me introduce my guest. She'd be wondering, why is this lady talking so much? But please don't mind me. This happens on this podcast. So I also try to vent and talk about my own story before I bring on my guest. So it's good to have you. How are you doing?
Hello, hi. No worries at all. You're completely fine.
It's so good to hear you. But this is the first time we're having this conversation. How did we even meet again? Remind me.
Yes, so I remember reaching out to you, and I had watched something like that you had been in, like a show that you were acted
A
on.
movie.
And so yes,
Yeah.
so I reached out to you saying I really love like the way you speak, and just like
Oh, thank
knowing,
you.
yeah, and finding out that you're a voiceover artist, I was just like, okay, this makes completely sense. Like it makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what happened. So when I saw it initially, I said, no, this person is not real because I checked the profile. And I said no. This person is not real. This is not real. This is not a real account, actually. But something said, Sha talk Sha. Well, I responded, and it's been amazing because she doesn't know it, but I go through her timeline. Is that okay to say that on Instagram? I think timeline is for Facebook. I don't know what you call it on Instagram. But I go through her page and she's really doing well for herself. It's such an honor to have you on my Life Continues Everyday podcast. I am so tempted to say your name, but this is an anonymous podcast. And even if I have the president's child with me, I cannot call the person's name. But I'm so delighted and honored to have you.
Thank you so much for having me too. I am like really honored by your invitation and you know,
Oh,
yeah, thank you so much.
you're welcome. So let's start by you telling us, because that's what we do on this podcast. I'm sure you're familiar with the terms or our stories and what we do here. We tell our stories, just to get another person to understand they are not alone in whatever fight they are going through on earth. And so I don't know, I know you've got so many stories to tell, but just that one particular story that would make people understand that their lives should continue every day. No need for suicide, no need to hurt yourself. And you are a mental health activist, so I believe, God, you are just the right person to have this conversation with. Tell us your story. Just start from anywhere.
Okay, so around the age of 13,
Oh,
I
yeah.
started experiencing depression, fear of abandonment. I
Wow.
was going through a really rough time due to like some traumatic experiences. I don't really talk much about the experiences that I had when I was younger, just because I don't really want to like bring it bring up those feelings again and kind of like
Oh, yes.
re-traumatize myself. But
Oh, I
basically
understand.
yeah, but basically it really caused me to just feel very at a young age feel very
Mm-hmm.
as though like I wasn't really loved. I felt
Oh my
unworthy
God.
of love. I felt like no one could really understand what I was going through because um for all those years from I was age 13 up until like I would say 2 years ago, I kind of like, experienced a lot from like, as I mentioned, depression, fear of abandonment, suicidal ideations, intrusive thoughts, and just like a whole lot. So whilst I was going through all of that, I felt as though no one really understood me. No one really could just know what I was going through because mental health was not really spoken about at that
Uh-huh.
time, especially in the African community and
Mm-hmm.
African American community. Mental health is not really a thing where it's talked about. It's kind of seen as a taboo, and people are just like afraid to really just bring it up, especially in our community. It's like a thing
Uh-huh.
of, what goes on in this house stays in this house.
I
Yeah.
know.
And it's like, when someone brings up they're feeling depressed, they're like, oh, God forbid, not in this house. And so it was just a thing where I kind of felt as though I didn't really have anyone to talk to about that. And it got to a point where, because I had been traveling back and forth from Nigeria to America at a very young age, so it was always me going back and forth for so long as I can remember. I was around the age of, I would say, 9, traveling by myself on the plane. So yeah,
Oh, by yourself?
yeah. But I do
Wow.
remember my dad had paid for escort. So the first time I traveled alone, I was escorted by the airport. Don't remember what it's called, but they have people that are in charge of like escorting underage children when they're traveling alone. So that was what happened. But the other times I did travel alone by myself on plane. Um, but from just going back and forth, it also affected me in a way of, I wasn't really like I didn't really have my dad around me for some time while I was in America, and then when I came back here, I didn't really have my mom around. So it was just a whole lot. We're split up as a family. So um in those times I didn't really have my mom that I could open up to and talk about, like, oh hey, this is what I'm experiencing. And my dad was always busy with work and stuff. So like just struggling on my own and dealing with it, at some point it got so much that I thought to myself, okay, what if I go to the local pharmacy right beside me and ask them for antidepressants, and ask them for something that they could give me to just get rid of the thoughts and everything that I was experiencing. But I thought to myself, like, okay, what if these people just look at me crazy and be like, where's your parents? And so I kind of, felt scared to go and ask them. And even whilst in school, I didn't really, you know, the only person that I could really talk to in school was just a classmate, and just venting to them, because um, during that time, there was no school counselor. The closest thing that we had was a guidance counselor who mostly focused on our academics and making sure we weren't getting in trouble. So I couldn't really speak to anyone about it. And so just going from not knowing where to speak, not knowing how to get help, to
Uh-huh.
coming back to America and talking to my mom about how I was feeling, and just her telling me um just kind of pray about it. Yes, I'm from a Christian
Oh.
background, and so I would say I had about 5 suicide attempts my whole life. At different points in my life, I've had different
Uh-huh.
attempts of suicide. And in those moments,
Okay.
I feel as though I didn't want to die, but I mostly wanted to get rid of what I was feeling. It was as though I was kind of in a prison. I felt like I was in a cycle of doom, like there was no way out. It felt like I was
Mm-hmm.
trapped, and it felt just as though like this is something that has been continuing on and on. And it just felt like as though this is my life, like maybe this is what I'm was created
Meant to
for.
be forever. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. I feel you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I remember at some point I would break down and just remember screaming and crying and telling my mom, like, why did you give birth to me? Like, why did you bring me into this world? As though it was a punishment. I didn't really know my purpose. I didn't know why I was on this earth. I felt as though, I felt like I was just a put to the side person. Like I was a cast down person. Like I felt as though my voice didn't
Alone.
matter. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like as though my voice didn't matter. Like no one, I didn't feel seen basically. I didn't feel heard. I felt like I was just screaming, but nobody could hear me for
Could hear
so
you.
long. Yeah. And
Mm.
then, whilst I was screaming and crying, asking my mom, like, okay, why did you give birth to me? Why did you bring me in this world? And she would just be like crying with me and just petting me and, telling me that it's going to be fine, that this is just a phase in your life. And I was also in and out of the mental health hospital over here. I remember whilst I was in Nigeria one time, I'm sorry, I'm like going back and forth because I've traveled so many times that is
Totally
just like,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So whilst I was in Nigeria and I had a suicide attempt in Nigeria, I remember that I was admitted into the hospital for 4 days, and I was only seen medically. They only made sure I was medically okay, and then they discharged me. I didn't receive no mental health counseling, no therapy had seen me, no psychiatrist, no nothing. So it was just as though like I was going back into the world with feeling feeling physically fine, but just like the feelings of suicide was still there because they didn't treat me for that. They didn't see me. Like I didn't really have someone to speak to about what I was really feeling. So it was as though like it didn't really help me at all. Like they just checked me and make sure like I was not gonna like, as though like I was just they wanted to just make sure I was physically okay. And I just felt like as though um I would have really appreciated if someone could really just sit with me and really ask me, like, why
What
did
is
you,
your problem?
what's the matter? Like,
Exactly.
why did you actually try to, take your life? And so, I went on to just feeling the same way for so many years, you know, in and out of the mental hospital for intrusive thoughts as well. There was just these voices screaming at me, like, you are not worth it. Your life is not important. Like, it was just these negative voices in my head. And so all of those years and struggling with all of that, battling fear and just not really knowing who I was as a person, and also struggling with friendships, and just having this fear of abandonment, like if people are gonna leave me. And so I was always spiraling. I was never really stable for so long. And then I just remember, finally, I think I had had enough. I opened up to my parents and I told them, look, this is something I've been going through for so long. And I think I'm at a point where I really want to seek professional help. I think that I want to talk to someone professionally and, try to see what's really going on, because I believe that I've just been going through it for so many years and I cannot do it alone anymore. And, when I mentioned earlier on that my mom was just like, pray about it. And that was what my parents also said. They're like, where's your faith? Are you no longer trusting God? Like, trying to get me to like pray about it. And while I do believe prayers work, like now I will get into that part, but for as the story, I'm just trying to let it flow. I will still get to the part of where I talk about how my faith intertwines with my mental health. Yeah, but for now, I was just like telling them mental health does not discriminate, that it like if someone is going through, for instance, a physical health condition like high blood pressure, you're not going to tell them to just stay home, but they're going to go for checkups. They're going to have their high blood pressure medication that they're taking frequently, and, going to the hospital to get checkups and just making sure that they're making progress in their health. So, this is what I told my parents, and they still had a hard time understanding. And so I told them, because it was a whole long debate for like 2 weeks of just like crying and arguing and telling them, like, if I'm your daughter and you say you love me, you will want me to get better, you will want me to get help. And so they finally saw it in my eyes. Like every time that we will have that conversation, I would just shed so many tears. So they were like, you know what, okay, fine, let's just take you and see, what they say, because it seems like no matter what we say, you're just gonna keep, like, I feel like I'm a person that if I don't get it my way, I'm gonna keep being persistent. So finally they took me to the therapy appointment. Actually, it was a psychiatrist that I saw first. So I kind of was starting to get mental health professional care and services. And so I was seeing a therapist, I was seeing a psychiatrist. And then it got to a point where I started going to group therapy and all of that. So I found that it was helpful. Like I was getting on medication and all that. So I found like it was starting to help me a lot more. I was getting more in tune with myself, but I still felt as though I was empty. I still felt as though, like as though I like the medication, in fact, kind of made me feel restless and just as though I could not
Huh?
think on my own. So, while still being on medication and
Mm-hmm.
while still just receiving treatment, I feel
This was
like,
after you met the psychiatrist?
yes, yes, it
Oh,
was
okay.
helping me, but I still felt as though I wasn't fully at peace. And
You needed
I feel
more.
like, yeah, I feel like where the change really happened was about like 2 years ago. Um,
Wow.
being on medication, I think for a year and a half, that was how long I was on medication, seeing therapists and professionals. And so the change really happened about, like, let me say, ending of 2022. So I kind of felt as though I was really happy. I was really at peace. I just had a lot of more clarity within, my surroundings and everything that was going on with my life. I started, finding that I was doing things that I really loved doing again. And then I felt as though I started realizing my passion, which was, as I said, going through stigma in my community and through my parents. I started finding that I had a passion for mental health education and for mental health awareness, and just wanting to let people know that mental health is not something that just affects a certain type of people. For instance, in the Black community, they would say like mental health is a white man disease. But I wanted people to know that regardless of who you are, regardless of your race, regardless of your religious background, mental health does not discriminate, and anyone can be affected by mental health. And so that was my mission, to really get that out there. And that is when I started sharing my story. I started volunteering with a organization that kind of pushed me towards sharing my story and going out in different communities and just talking about my story and letting people know everything I went through. And that was when I realized that that was my passion. That was what I was created for. And I started kind of, just having that passion in me and wanting to find a way to let it all out and letting people hear this. And that was when it came to my mind that, for all those years, I was looking for a reason to stay. For all these years, I was looking for a purpose. I was looking for a reason to just stay alive. And finally, I had found that reason. But I wanted to say the change really happened when I started being in tune with God. And when I say God, I'm saying I realized that a lot of people who attempt suicide, they try it one time and they're gone. But I want to say 5 times was how many times I tried to end my life, and yet I'm still here. Yet I'm still being this person who is graced to be able to share their story. Not many people that attempt suicide are here to really say the after effect, to really talk about it. So that was when it clicked, and I started realizing that after all these years, I feel as though it wasn't a punishment, but sometimes God allows some things to happen just so you can have that story, just so you can have that testimony to let other people know who are also going through those things, to let them know that, life still goes on. Your podcast is called My
Yeah.
Life Continues Every Day. And
Uh-huh.
going through so much with mental health and just seeing how the enemy tried to take my life from me, and just being able to be here still to share it is just something that kind of, pushed me towards wanting to pursue my faith and wanting to know God more. And so I felt as though from that age of 13, I had suicidal ideation every single day, if not every day, every other day. And so as I started as I started getting to know God more, as I started to being in tune with his voice, I found that I no longer experienced that suicidal ideation anymore. I no longer battled with just wanting to self-harm, because that was something I also struggled with, and wanting to seek validation with people, friends, even my parents. I was always trying to, like, seek validation in just humans in general. And I found that this validation was something that never filled me up. And as I started being more in tune with my relationship with God, I started realizing that the peace that I seeked for in those amount of years, I started feeling peace. I started feeling serenity and just calmness. And that was when the change really happened. And I felt as though my life is kind of a testimony for just other people who think that mental health is the end. So I want people to know that my life is a living proof that you can have mental health conditions and you can struggle with mental health, but you can still come out on the other side you can still come out successful. You can still come out thriving. Mental health is not a death sentence, but I want people to know that mental health is something that you can battle with, and it can try to get the best of you, but don't allow that pain, don't allow the hurt to cause you to want to give in. I want people to know that the light can still show up even in the middle of the darkness, even when you think that life is ending, when you think life is coming down and it's just crashing on you. You just have to wait and see for when the light will come, because in my situation, I just wanted to just give in. I wanted to just I didn't want to be here at all. I felt as though my life was a punishment. I felt as though I didn't have hope. But now I can just see that there is hope in pain. There is hope in when you hold on, there is hope in that pain. And just using the hurt, using the pain, using everything and turning it around for something beautiful, turning it around for something that can inspire others and can motivate others was just my situation and just my story. And also just like going from a person who kind of felt as though my voice was silenced, kind of felt as though I no one could hear my voice, and now I feel as though my voice is being the conversation starter, being the thing that is allowing
Good.
other people to voice out their own struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I think that's where my story kind of no, I don't want to say my story ends, because my story is
It
still
doesn't.
continuing.
Continues.
Yes.
Exactly. That's the name of this podcast. Your life continues every day. Yes.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you shared the story, because you said something. You said, first of all, I want to say I'm really sorry you went through what you went through. And just in case there are any fragments still remaining, I'm really sorry. But I believe that now that you know, and just as you told us, there is a purpose for everybody. And I think God sometimes just does this thing. I don't want to say all the time, because I don't know all of his plans. But I think sometimes he just makes he just allows these things happen because he knows that somebody would need it somewhere. He understands that life is filled with struggle, right? And then he knows that at some point somebody would seek strength. How would they get it? It might not be so easy to get all of it from the Bible. I'm not saying the Bible doesn't contain everything. I mean, for some people, they read the Bible and it goes right there, which is what it should be. But some people are looking for something relatable, something they can touch and see, and so he tries to put it in another human being, which is what I think he's done to you, he's done to me, he's done to every other person who is going through a hard time or who have gone through hard times, right? He does it so much so that when you are out of it or while you're in it and you're surviving, you have to, just like you said, in the pain there is hope. When you hold on to that hope, when you get hold of that hope, when you realize the secret to that pain and staying fine without hurting yourself, you are able to tell the person next door or the next person going through that hell, this is how to go through it. I've gone through this and I think you can go through it. Not to compare, but I think you will go through it and you'll come out fine. And it's going on this badly because there is somebody you're about to help. Is going on this badly because there is something he's about to teach you and he wants you to teach people, either for them not to fall into the same problem or for you to stop a generational, pattern. And I'm so glad you mentioned a lot of things that I personally have been saying, maybe not saying it in the right way, but it's really good to hear you talk, because it felt like because I started this podcast by telling people that something I felt was mine is being taken away. Each time I think it's mine, it's taken away. It's frustrating, because it's happened for years, and now again when I thought it was it's really overwhelming. But then again, hearing you speak, I'm empowered and I've been encouraged, and I believe this is happening now. It's very timely and God has his purpose, you see, for doing this. And I believe anybody listening now who really need this, I believe they're hearing this, and if you can hear this is your sign to not hurt yourself, to not give up. It's you see, the thing is, I think the thing about going through, I don't want to call depression, I don't know if I've had depression, but I know that I've really had battles. That's the truth. I've really battled a lot, mentally and otherwise. One of the things that I think hurt me the most, which probably I've heard from other people who have mental conditions or who are battling with their mental health. You're saying something, but people are not hearing it. And someone will say, you don't blame me. You don't blame us. It's not our fault. Why are you not saying it? Say it. Say it the way it is. Tell me what is happening to you. The truth is, even when I tell you what is happening to me, sometimes it's not necessarily, I'm not even looking for you. You cannot solve the problem, right? The thing is, when I'm done telling you it, you don't even listen. You sweep it off. I don't know how to put it. It's like someone is like, tell me whenever you're going through this, just let me know. Just tell me. And when you're done telling them, funny enough, some even use it against you tomorrow. Like they're having a conversation with you and you say something like, this is why this thing is happening to you. This is it. This is why. And you're beginning, I don't know how to say this so it would make sense, but I've gone through it. And that's why sometimes I don't share with people. I come to this podcast and I say it because I think that if there are 3 people listening to this podcast, they are my fans. No, it's not fans. They are my audience. And when I say audience, I mean they are people who understand what this podcast is about. They are people who understand what going through struggles and being vulnerable is about. They are people who understand it. So when I speak, sometimes I prefer talking here on my podcast than really meeting people to talk to them. And also there are people passing through a lot of things, because the truth is everybody's going through one thing or the other, right? It's just some people are stronger than some other people. That's the truth. And so this podcast is where I come to vent and I say what I can. Another person, in fact, the first is God. Talk to God. I let him understand how I feel. And truth be told, he's been helpful. He's been very helpful. I don't want to downplay it, because that's what I think the devil likes to do. The devil wants you to feel so bad that even when good things begin to come into your life, you don't see it, you don't feel it, because you're too busy ruminating on the hurt and the pain. And I'm so glad you said the things you said. But when you said that thing you said, it got to me, the part where you are talking, but people are not listening. They think they can hear you, but they are not. And it's not their fault sometimes. Sometimes it's also some people's fault. They hear you and they feel like they have an answer for you. Like they feel they can, and not just having an answer. There are persons, brethren, who hold your hands and tell you it will be okay. They try to prefer solutions, just like you said. Could maybe tell you meet a therapist, or could share the word of God with you. I have sisters who do that with me. Share the word of God. They pray for you, not just when you're there. They pray when they keep telling God, I don't know what's wrong with Amanda, but I believe you will fix it. I know there are people like that praying for me. I mean, I believe somebody's doing it, because I know I couldn't have come this long if someone is not saying prayers for me somewhere. I believe there is an advocate somewhere for me. It gets really tough, and there's no one story to tell in mind, but I keep moving on. I keep telling what I can. I started this podcast because people who listened to it the first time I said it. A lot of people thought I was joking and I was lying. I had left my place and I left for Lagos, Nigeria then, and I was seeking for a job. I didn't even get that job there, but I got this podcast. And so that's why I said God knows what he's doing. I got this podcast, and I would tell them how I was hunting for jobs then. It would seem like it was a joke. It was funny. I was trying to make it sound funny, but it was really scary, because I was at the point in my life where I was supposed to start making it. I had just finished serving the nation in Nigeria then, and I had to start doing things, and things were not forthcoming, and other things, there were other obstacles, other personal challenges coming up, and I was overwhelmed, and there was no job, and I was here sharing my stories. I thought it was just a joke, but people who understood. And I'm so grateful for those ones who understood. There were just some of them who understood. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to tell anybody who's listening to you now, or who's listening to us, that it's not a joke. Like when she said, she's now telling her story. She's going places and stuff. Can tell you she is going places. She goes into high places, actually, guys. Permit me to say that. She goes into really high places and she talks and people listen. And I know that people would definitely approach her after sessions. I know this happens. Do people approach you after sessions? I mean, those places you go to where you give your talks, and do they approach you and tell you, thank you so much for telling me a story? I feel like I've been hurt.
Oh yes, I do have a lot of people, coming to meet me after, and some of them ask for my number, my email, and
Uh-huh.
then some of them even, I've had someone like crying and kind of relating
Oh,
back to their situation. Someone that actually around my age, when I was struggling with that, so it kind of made me, I would say, kind of made me feel as though, wow, like there's actually someone that was, about the same age as I was when I was really struggling, about that age of like 13. And, wow, this person's like really going through something similar as I had gone through. So I tried my
as
best to just,
you.
give them as much resources as possible whenever they need help, whenever they need someone to talk to. They can always refer back to the crisis hotline, or trying to get resources from the organization that I work with. They have a hotline number that people can call in when they're experiencing like suicidal ideation or crisis
Crisis.
situations. Yeah.
That's amazing because I think that's what this particular episode will do to somebody. I want to believe that they will reach out to me because they don't know who you are. They will reach out to me and they would say, this came in timely. I believe. And that's what this podcast has been doing. Not just you. There have been people who've told their stories, and I know people who meet me and they say, girl, this particular episode was for me. This episode was for me, right? And I just, like I said, I believe God is doing this, because if I'm not where I am right now, if I didn't do what I did and you saw me, or at the time I acted that film, I didn't have a job. I was going through my own personal crisis. I was working and something happened, and we had to end that work. We had to end that job because of some financial situations, and it was really hard because a lot of people thought at the time that I was bawling. A lot of people were like, oh my god, this is a time in your career when you're making it. They didn't know. And well, I acted that film and you saw it, you reached out, and here we are. And I believe this episode is not just for me, not just for you. There is somebody who will listen and it will save their life and it will be timely. And so I believe God orchestrates these things on purpose, and I'm so delighted. I am delighted for the things this particular episode will do to people. I'm delighted because people will reach out to me and they would ask me, how do we call this person, what do we do? When I will definitely refer them to you, because I think this is what you do formally. So I
Yes.
think if it's okay by you, I can refer them to you, and then you take them to your organization and all of that. Because I also when you said our spirituality matters. In fact, it is the first. As far as I'm concerned, it is God all the time. Even the mental crisis, he is aware. Unless there's something else you're doing with the enemy, maybe you have a pact with the enemy and then you and him have your conversations. But if you are passing anything happening to you, God knows, and he's allowing it. That is why it is happening. So he's either allowing it because he wants to teach you something, just like Job in the Bible, just like Tobit. I'm Catholic, and there's a book of Tobit. I don't think it's in the Bible. A lot of other people read, but there's a book of Tobit in the Bible. In the Catholic, I like Good News Bible, for instance, the book of Tobit. I like the story of that man and the things that happened to his child and stuff. And why did I mention this? Sometimes he just puts something because he's about to help you. He's about to send you angels. He's about to fix your life, and not just your life, but the life of more people to come, right? But you said something. You said you needed to talk to a professional in this field. There is a reason he gave people the intelligence to become mental health counselors. I'm not talking of people who are self-acclaimed counselors, people who are doing the work of, I don't know, maybe self-glory, I don't know. I'm talking of people who are really sent by God. They don't even have to be in churches. There are persons who were made for this, and there is a reason why they're just like we have doctors. You don't go giving yourself treatment yourself. It's not proper, or at least not all the time. There's a reason he made a doctor be there. There's a reason why he has a therapist there. He wants you to consult them. He will do what he will do, but he wants you to go there. And so it's not enough to tell a person who is going through crisis, especially when they've gone through traumatic experiences and they've shared it with you. You don't just say it's going to be fine. It actually can be fine. God can decide to heal it if he wants to. But I think it is also necessary, if you can, to refer these people to professionals who I believe have learned how to handle these things on earth. When you refer them to these people, they will handle it. But I think it can never be complete if you don't involve the Holy Spirit. I believe so. If you are into God, He will finish it. It's like finishing a wood. You just go to a carpenter, and when he's done, he does the finishing. So you go to this mental health doctor or professional, and they handle what they can. They tell you things you should avoid physically to help your mental state. And then you continue to commune with the Holy Spirit at every point in time. But if you decide to leave everything for, He will do it. God is amazing, but He may choose not to do it. Not because He hates you or because He doesn't want to do it or he's not capable, but because honestly He wants you to learn. And if you don't do it that way, you cannot help other people around you. There is a reason for everything. So, well, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate you. And I would love to hear your testimony sometime, right? Thank you for telling people. I mean, this is your testimony, but I would also love to hear you like come tell people, oh, so has happened, though, and more than this, or even to hear other people share their stories and say, oh, I listened to that lady in season 3, episode 9, and it's because of her that I'm here. I would be delighted to share that story. Thank you so much for coming to this show.
Of course. I know there were some things that I wanted to mention as you were speaking.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah. I wanted to mention as you were speaking about going to therapy and then also making sure that it is backed up by God. I wanted to speak about more in depth about that experience that I had, because how I told you I was going to therapy, I was taking medication, getting treatment, but I still did not feel filled from that. And throughout those amount of years of struggling, I would say before encountering God, I initially doubted God and His plan for my life. And that was really why I had been attempting to take my life, because I doubted God and who He said He was in my life. I doubted He existed, and kind of telling myself, if God exists, there's no way I can go through this. There's no way I could experience this. And I think that a lot of people also have that experience in kind of saying, okay, if God exists, there's no way I can go through all these struggles. And that's where people kind of leave God out of the equation and don't want anything to do with Him. But I wanted to just say, in the end, God proved Himself, and He definitely came through. And just the changes and everything, it's something that I never expected. Like I had said, I felt as though I was trapped. I felt as though I was imprisoned. And so when I finally started experiencing these changes, it was just as though, I don't know, it was just really something that I never saw. And just that's what really shocks me, that God can still be faithful despite me doubting Him. And I would just say God is just, He's so gracious. And don't ever feel as though God does not hear you. Don't ever feel you're not worthy of God's love, because if He has said something, He would definitely come through and He would definitely show Himself. So definitely make sure, if you're getting treatment for your mental health, that you involve God in your situation. These things, they're only temporary. Like how I told you people that I was finding validation in humans, in people, but none of them had the power to ever make me feel redeemed from what I was going through. None of them ever made me feel at peace, to the point where it's just a peace that I've never experienced before. So that's what I really wanted to say.
Thank you so much, and thank God. Thank you so much for sharing this, and thank you for today. And guys, thank you for staying this long. I know it's probably longer than what you've ever heard before, but I think it is also worth it, because a lot is happening, and I know a lot of people do not know how to open up. I'm one of those persons. I used to be, though. But I believe that God is there. Also, you can find a community that understands you, a community that does not judge you. It could be a prayer community. It could even be this MLCE, My Life Continues Everyday community. And if you don't want to talk to people, feel free to send me your stories. We could just drop it here because I feel there is something that happens when you speak. Somebody will hear. And I promise you, if there is a need to send you any kind of maybe number or help, I will, and there's anybody available, I will share. That's the truth. Because I want you better. I want me better. I want us better. I'm not... Today is just it. This is happening because it all falls in line. What's been happening to me recently. I've been in a very bad place. Maybe you've heard this of me recently, but I think it's getting darker for me. Getting really, really darker for me. But it's also getting more liberating for me because in the space of this, especially this year, I have met, I don't know, man. I've been in places where God alone knows how he took me there, with people who God alone knows how he brought them my way, and they've helped me and they've listened. And I just want to use this opportunity to thank people who know me, who have been there for me, people who know my story, people who have been there, people who listen to this podcast, who have been listening since 2021, people who listen to the inner voice. When I'm done talking, they call sometimes, they're like, we listen to this episode, what's up? And those who know when it is just basically cruise and we're cruising and stuff, right? And those who share their stories. Thank you so much for doing this. Feel free to send in your story to IamAmandaElo@gmail.com. Everything is just in small letter. IamAmandaElo@gmail.com. Send your stories there, or just reach out to me on Facebook or on Instagram. I am Charlie Mandy, CharleyMandy, Charlie Mandy. God is still in the business of doing miracles. Guys, remember I have a short film on YouTube, my own film, the one I made, and it's called The Miracle. And I said a lot of things. You know, some days when I get really perturbed, especially with the things happening recently, I go back to that film and something tells me, God made you make a whole film for yourself and you're still bothered. Like he made, because initially I was bothered about likes. I told you guys, likes, comments, shares and stuff, which is happening, but not the way I wanted to. But I think, however, that I am the one who that film is for. From time to time, it answers some of my problems, and I'm grateful. Just like this podcast answers some of my problems. God is definitely in this story, I believe, and I don't want to give up. Some days I shout, I yell, I even complain, I doubt, I complain, I yell. Some people tell me, take it easy. Thank God for those people whom I have in my life. Thank God for people who come to my podcast like this and share their stories, and I also get hope. Thank God for you who's always listening, and thank God for God. And thank God for people who say prayers for us, who are intercessors for us, our parents, our friends, our well-wishers. Thank God for them. I'm deeply, deeply grateful to all of you. So this is where we're going to end it today. And I want you to know that, like I said, God is still in the business of doing miracles. And he will not do for you what you can do for yourself. He will not do for you what you can do for yourself. That's what my speaker today, my guest, is telling you today, because she had to seek help. People who can hear me, if a person is looking for help, don't try to teach them you know everything. Help them if you can, or refer them to who can help. If you're not sure of the person, don't leave them there. But if you're sure, do it. One other thing is pray for somebody, for that person who you feel needs prayer today. If anybody crosses your mind as I'm saying this, know that that is a sign to pray for that person, no matter how badly they've hurt you. Even if they're your ex boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever it is, pray for them. There's a reason. God wants you to advocate for somebody because you may be saving a life. Thank you so much once again, my guest, and thank you to you who listened. My life continues every day. I love you all. God bless you, and may his angels protect you. Take care of yourselves and continue being healthy, and eat if you see food. Yeah? Eat food. It's important. No matter what happens. Eat good food if you see good food. All right, guys. God bless you. I love you. And yeah, bye.
I'm living a good life, no stress and no strife. Every day I keep moving up, Monday to Sunday, steady balling. If you can have one,